What's up, everyone? It is Paul, the MMA Shark, coming at you ahead of UFC Vegas 62, Alexa Grasso versus Viviane Araujo, and it's a stellar main event. A lot of shit, a lot of hate on the internet about this fight card, and I don't get it. Khabib's not on it, Conor McGregor's not on it, John Jones isn't on it. That's okay. This card has some fights that I just cannot wait for, some lines that I am just jawing at the bit. Can't wait to get these bets out to my subscribers. I'm going to give you guys a couple free plays right now, too. And I will say, with free plays, drop a comment on here on Saturday before you put your slip in. Make sure nothing has changed. In the sport of MMA, the later you put the bet in, the later I put my plays out to my subscribers, the higher percent of it happening will occur. My last free video ahead of UFC Vegas 61, I had Krzysztof Jotko as a free play, and I did get some late intel and switched to a rather large play on Brendan Allen. So don't be afraid to drop a comment on here on Saturday and say, like, hey, are those free plays still a go? Has anything changed? I will absolutely respond to you. So that's one thing that I want to be very transparent. I will say that the free play lost on here last time, but I had hundreds of subscribers cash on that free play. So, looking ahead at this card, like I said, I think it's a sleeper card. It's a card that you may not know every fighter's name on it, but it's a card with a lot of money to be made. Some wide lines, some live dogs. And, Vegas probably capped this thinking it was sharp, but let's face it, their focus is on UFC 280 next weekend. They want to make billions of dollars of MMA fans' money next weekend. In my mind, it's the single largest MMA card of 2022, and it might be bigger than any card that happened last year. Let's face it, UFC Abu Dhabi next weekend is stacked, and I've got hundreds of hours into this card already for next week. But it's not a look-ahead card on my point. This weekend's card, this Saturday night's card, I'm ready for. And, I'm going to keep following my late data for it. But I'm going to break down the fights. All 12 fights, I'm going to break them down. And I'm going to give out some free plays. I'm going to give out some leans on some of these fights. And at the end of this video, you're going to have a free play or two. And you're going to know what you're watching. If you're not ready to sign up with me yet, that's cool. I get it. I enjoy coming out and, a lot of my subscribers watch these videos, and when the fights come on, they have some insight on it, and, just kind of have an idea of where I was thinking or what I was leaning or what I was looking for from each particular fighter. So let's get into it. www.themmashark.com. I have a special promo embedded into the website right now. Everyone gets 25% off the first month. There has absolutely never been a better time to sign up. Why do I say that? From now until the end of the year, UFC, Bellator, PFL is going all out with action. There is absolutely the best MMA of 2022 coming up between now and December 17th. Not to mention, since the start of September, I have hit cards at 15-2. I'm hitting them at 91% now, coming off a huge Cage Warriors weekend. A huge boxing weekend. Even with a non-MMA weekend last weekend, we were able to get double-digit units. So, firing on all cylinders. Crushed UFC Vegas 61 and Bellator 68 2 Saturdays ago. So, you can't get a better time to jump into this. October's already up 27.5 units, and I'm hoping we get to 50 this month. I'm thinking that the stage is set for it. We're on house money already, but you can hop in and build that bankroll a little bit before the big UFC 280 that basically the whole world's going to be watching. So let's get into this card. UFC Fight Night 62, Grasso versus Araujo, Saturday night from the Apex, smaller cage. Keep that in mind. I keep that in mind. 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. West Coasters, you got to wake up a little early for this one. Fight 1. This fight sucks. And, it's probably the trappiest fight on the card. We've got Mike Jackson, who is 1-1. He's just a total shit sandwich of a UFC caliber fighter. He's got a good Muay Thai background. I get that. But he was brought to the UFC for two reasons. One, to lose to Mickey Gall, and he did. And two, to lose to CM Punk, which, He beat CM Punk, but it was overturned because he had marijuana in his system. He did fair and square beat CM Punk in that fight. He kind of embarrassed him. So the UFC has this guy who is 1-1, and they match him up, 0-2 until it got reversed. So they match him up with Dean Barry. Dean Barry, a prolific striker, karate, absolute badass out of Ireland. Billing him as the next big thing. He was minus 1,400 when he fought Mike Jackson. Jackson was just there to get knocked out. The crazy thing is, on the books, Jackson won that fight by first round TKO, which would have paid out plus 5,000. Jackson didn't land any punches in that fight. He did not hurt Dean Barry, but Dean Barry had a lot of groin kicks, a couple eye gouges, and ultimately got disqualified and cut from the UFC. So, Mike Jackson got the crap beat out of him in that fight, but got the win, gets to 1-1 after the CM Punk fight got overturned, and is still in the UFC. So what does the UFC do to him after the Dean Barry win and taking out a huge prospect from Ireland that he didn't earn? They throw him Pete Rodriguez. Pete Rodriguez is very tough. He's a strong fighter at a dominant MMA, primarily out of Arizona. He came into the UFC rather young, rather quick. He was only pro for about 18 months. He took a short notice fight versus Jack Della Maddalena, and it showed in that fight that he wasn't ready for the UFC. He got knocked out in the first round. Jack Della Maddalena is an absolute stud. He was able to knock him out. In that fight, it was obvious that someone was getting knocked out, and Rodriguez just bit off more than he can chew young in his career. So I look at the level of competition that Pete Rodriguez has faced. It's nothing spectacular. He beat a 2-2, an 0-1, a 1-0, and a 5-1 to go to the UFC and get knocked out in the first round. Why the hell he is minus 675 now just blows my mind. In my personal opinion, don't bet anything on this fight. It's fight one. It's trappy as hell. Pete Rodriguez to win by knockout is probably the most likely outcome. Although Mike Jackson, weird things happen in Mike Jackson fights. He does have some pretty good striking defense. He could take a punch. He's also a lawyer, a 1-on-1 lawyer fighting in the UFC. I heard he was also a photographer. I don't know how serious he's taking this fight. Mike Jackson's plus 850 to win by knockout. Probably not going to happen, but he did it to Dean Barry, although he didn't actually do it to Dean Barry. The fight to go the distance is plus 425. To not go the distance is minus 700. Just load it with juice in this fight. And my professional opinion, and I'm probably going to only have like a half unit prop released to my subscribers on this fight. The last thing I want to do is, drop even Pete Rodriguez in a parlay at minus 675. Risk versus reward, there's nothing there. So a fight like that, all you could do is lose. You could take Mike Jackson at plus 500, but I think he's got maybe like a 7 to 9% chance of winning the fight. Like I said, fight one, total shit sandwich, and it's going to be a rare pass for me. Fight two, the action absolutely heats up. We have a really, really good bantamweight fight. One of the number one prospects in the UFC right now is Tatsuro Taira. He is 11-0 as a professional, fighting the very game and very tough CJ Vergara. CJ Vergara is a very good UFC fighter. He did defeat Ode Osborne. I'm sorry, he lost to Ode Osborne. See, I don't do this with a window behind me showing Wikipedia and Tapology. I do this because I know that much about MMA. So if I have to correct myself a few times, that's not me not knowing MMA. That's just not me reading off a teleprompter the whole time. So he made his UFC debut versus Ode Osborne. He dropped the first 2 rounds to Ode Osborne and actually came off really strong in the third round and almost finished Osborne, who has been finishing people lately. A very tough fight. It's not a bad loss to have on his record. My subscribers will remember CJ Vergara from when he knocked out Bruno Correa on Dana White's Contender Series. It was a huge win back in 2021 that we had. Coming into that fight, he was coming off of 6 straight knockout wins. Last fight, he fought Clayton Rodriguez. He won that fight by split decision, solely on octagon control and takedowns. And, he did enough to defeat Clayton Rodriguez. Clayton Rodriguez is going to take on my boy Cody Durden at the end of October. That's another day, another story, but a fight I'm very much excited for. So Vergara is is up to plus 205 now, with the comeback on Tatsuro Taira at minus 245. I see this as somewhat of a trappy fight, a trappy line. I'm not saying Vergara is going to win the fight. I'm saying that it's a lot of juice to lay on Tatsuro Taira, who is just 1-0 in the UFC. He didn't look spectacularly dominating in his UFC debut. He did enough to get the win. He's got very good takedowns. He's got very good takedown defense. Being able to take down CJ Vergara is probably his path to victory. I don't see him wanting to get into a slugfest with CJ Vergara. I think that's a scenario where Vergara can win the fight. All in all, I think it's a very close fight. I could see this being a split decision type fight, where Vergara maybe loses the first round, comes on real strong and wins the second, close third round. I don't see anything to justify Vergara being plus 205. I think it's more of a plus 150-ish kind of fight, solely because Taira has never lost as a professional or an amateur. He was 8-0 as an amateur. He did fight a pretty good level of competition in Judo, which is a very large promotion in Brazil. His UFC debut, he handsomely defeated Carlos Candelario, who is a very good prospect. He was 8-1 at the time. Candelario now coming off 2 losses. So I think it's a good fight. For the fight not to go the distance is plus 130, so it is favored to go to a decision. And of course, the most probable, according to the line's prop of that fight, would be Tatsuro Taira to win by decision, which is plus 110. An interesting prop is Vergara to win by KO at plus 550. He can absolutely do that. I'm not sure he's going to. This is a fight that I'm not ready to make a free play on. It's something that I want to see how the week plays out. It's a fight that'll likely have the first major play of the card for my subscribers. It's a fight I'm definitely looking forward to. The UFC flyweight division has absolutely made its name for itself lately. 5 years ago, they were talking about getting rid of the division, and quickly it's become one of the most exciting divisions in MMA. The speed, the strength of schedule, how often these guys fight, the damage they're able to take. You know, I love flyweight MMA, so I'm big on that. Fight 3, we have a really close one again. We have Piera Rodriguez, who's coming in at 8-0, taking on Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes is quickly becoming a fan favorite. Everyone loves Sam Hughes. Piera Rodriguez is 8-0. She has looked very, very good in her last 3 fights, particularly winning a decision over Kay Hansen. Kay Hansen and Sam Hughes are somewhat similar of an opponent, so she doesn't have to really change her style much for this fight. The only thing I've noticed with Sam Hughes ever since she switched to Fortis, she has looked a lot better. She's definitely a better grappler than she used to be. She showcased that in the Elise Reed fight, where she was actually able to win with elbows by mount. Elise Reed is no joke. She's got very good jiu-jitsu. Not the best striker, but on the ground, Sam Hughes was definitely able to control her. She also beat Isaiah Nunes in the fight before that, and Nunes was like really a huge favorite in that fight. 6-2. That was a big win for Sam Hughes. So, you know, Sam Hughes is coming in hot. 2 straight victories, and plus 140 kind of grabs my attention on it. Fortis MMA, they're really on the map. They've been strong. It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. It's going to be a very small play on my end when I put this fight out to the subscribers. I would expect a really close fight. I think it's probably going to go 3 rounds. Apparently so does Vegas. That fight to go to the distance is minus 280. Way too much juice to lay. Another one of those situations on this card that, you know, you got to pay to play, and I'm not willing to do that with the amount of MMA that's coming up in the next 9 to 10 weeks. So nothing much crazy bettable on that fight. I expect a really close fight, and I think it'll be a pretty good fight. It's going to basically come down to, will Sam Hughes be able to get takedowns and hold her down, or will Piera Rodriguez absolutely get takedowns, because she will get takedowns? Will she be able to control Sam Hughes on the ground in that fight? Striking advantage absolutely goes to Piera Rodriguez. She has showcased it in every one of her fights. If you watch film, she comes out rather aggressive for a female 115-pound fight. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a close fight. We'll see what happens there. Late addition to the card, Joanderson Brito, his original opponent, is out of that fight, so now he's taking on the UFC newcomer on a week notice. I'm excited for this UFC debut, Lucas Alexander out of Fusion XL. He is coming off of 4 straight wins, 2 of them by finish, 2 of them by decision. Not exactly a Joanderson Brito type of competition, but one that did stand out good was his victory on Anthony Pettis' FC1 over Jacob Kilburn. He won that fight in the second round. He's training with Mike Davis, Phil Rowe, Julian Williams, Jacare Souza. So Fusion XL in Orlando has gained a lot of momentum. And, Lucas Alexander was going to get signed to the UFC eventually. It's not like they brought a scrub into this fight to fight Joanderson Brito, but it's probably not a typical good spot for Lucas Alexander. Brito, he's for real. He's 13-3. He just knocked out Andre Fili his last fight. Nobody really knocks out Andre Fili. They can beat him, but you just saw in his fight last weekend that Andre Fili, he took it to Bill Algeo. He controlled him on the ground. Prior to getting knocked out by Brito, he had not been knocked out since Yair Rodriguez knocked him out in 2016. So, that's a tough first debut for Lucas Alexander. Could he beat him? Absolutely. Will he beat him? Probably not. I just think Joanderson Brito is going to have many steps ahead. There's no doubt in my mind that Lucas will be ready. Lucas has only been finished once as a professional, and that was by a rear naked choke submission. So I think that the line is justified on this fight. Joanderson Brito is minus 380. Lucas Alexander is plus 310. I think they're showing Lucas Alexander a little bit of respect here at 310. A lot of times these guys taking fights against pretty prolific strikers such as Brito or, plus 500, plus 600. So the odds makers like Lucas a little bit more than I think they should. I think Brito at minus 380 is somewhat of a steal. Definitely not something I'm willing to lay. He may be a parlay situation because I do think he wins that fight. And over 1.5, under over 1.5 is sitting at a pick'em right now. So this could either be a really quick fight or it could be a drawn-out decision. Brito is certainly capable of knockouts. He's got several to his record. Pretty good fight. Again, it's not an extremely bettable fight. So, again, it's probably a parlay or pass or a prop on my end. Going on to Fight 5, I am willing to give a free play on this fight. It's a fight that I really like, and it's basically stylistically a coin flip fight that if these two fighters looked at each other in the mirror, they are the same version of each other. We have Nick Maximov, obviously Nick Maximov out of Nick Diaz Academy, well-groomed in wrestling, well-groomed in grappling. His last outing, he had a very bad fight. He got finished in the first minute in an anaconda choke to Andre Petrosky. Love Andre Petrosky, Philadelphia boy. Didn't see it coming, but the Corey Brundage fight was basically similar to this fight. Grappler versus grappler. He was able to take it to Cody Brundage, win that by decision at UFC 266. I do like Nick Maximov as a fighter, but I love Jacob Malkoun as a fighter. Jacob Malkoun is going to have much heavier top pressure than Nick Maximov on this fight. We just saw him fight Brandon Allen. The majority of that fight was on the ground. Brandon Allen never really posed a threat. As much as I like Brandon Allen, Jacob Malkoun won that fight 29-28. The fact that he lost a unanimous decision 29-28 still blows my mind. Prior to that, Jacob Malkoun was able to defeat AJ Dobson. He beat Abdul Razak Al Hassan, and his UFC debut was ugly. Another buddy of mine, Phil Haas, knocked him out cold 18 seconds in. Maybe that's octagon jitters. I don't really know. He's better than that, and Nick Maximov is 100% not going out there and knocking out Jacob Malkoun. For that reason and several, I like Jacob Malkoun here. He's down to plus 110. I'm confident enough to say that as a free play. Jacob Malkoun plus 110. It's a play I like. I'm not going max play or anything on it. It's just a play that I like. I feel like that he's got the heavier top pressure. He's got the cardio. And, something just isn't sitting right with that first minute Anaconda loss to Andre Petroski. I mean, Andre Petroski is very, very good, don't get me wrong. But maybe he's just not as good on the ground as we think he is. And I have some pretty good confidence in Jacob Malkoun to win this fight. Not likely by submission, probably not by KO, most likely by decision. But again, just a small free play. And when I say free play, I would just figure it for a unit. I'm not saying go bet your house on it. It's just a lean that I like, and that is Jacob Malkoun. Next up on the prelims, this fight might be a snoozer, or it might be quick, or it might be punches and bunches and a long punishment. We have Raphael Assuncao returning to the cage. He is now 40 years old. He has not won a fight since 2018 when he defeated Rob Font. But the good news, if you are a Raphael Assuncao fan, is his 4 losses have come to very good competition. Marlon Moraes, Corey Sandhagen, Cody Garbrandt, and Ricky Simon. Garbrandt and Simon were able to finish Assuncao. Prior to that, he had only got knocked out to Eric Koch earlier in his career. So, I see that chin starting to slip on Assuncao. He's still a very dangerous fighter. And it's kind of a feel-good story who he's fighting in here in Victor Henry. Victor Henry, similar to Lucas Alexander, took a very short notice UFC debut against Rony Barcelos back at UFC 270, which was in January of this year. And he took it to Rony Barcelos. We just saw Rony Barcelos dominate Tevin Giles last weekend. And, Rony is for real, and he just got outstruck. He got his nose busted up. Victor Henry throws punches in bunches. Raphael Assuncao doesn't really throw a lot of volume at all, but is very dangerous. He's very decorated. He could be dangerous if he wants to be dangerous. It all depends what version of Assuncao shows up in that fight. But Victor Henry, I mean, he's 35 years old, so he doesn't have a whole lot of time to prove himself in the UFC. He got signed to the UFC just by beating Albert Morales in LFA. Albert Morales was 10-7 at the time. So, I other than the fight to Rony Barcelos, was it a fluke? Possibly. He hasn't fought anywhere near the level of competition that Raphael Assuncao has fought. Again, very trappy fight. Victor Henry, who was absolutely supposed to lose his UFC debut, he was a plus 530 at that fight, is now a minus 365 against a very decorated and one of the better UFC bantamweights in the past decade of Raphael Assuncao. Assuncao plus 300 is way too high. I really feel like Assuncao should be plus 150. I'm not sure if I think he's going to win the fight. I'm going to rely on my late data for that. But if anything, if any takes from me talking about this fight, don't go bet Victor Henry minus 365. Way too much juice to lose. The fight going the distance or not is a pick'em. At this very moment, I lean that it goes to a decision, which would be minus 110. Not an official free play, but it's just a lean. I think it goes to a decision at minus 110, but we'll see what happens. From this part of the card on is why I'm so excited for this card. And unfortunately, the majority of these are subscribers only. If you head over to www.themmashark.com, you can sign up, have all my plays texted to you. I do not just cap UFC. I do UFC, Bellator, PFL, LFA, Invicta, Cage Warriors, Major Boxing. I text the plays right out to you. I'm reachable during the cards. I am up 393 units in 2022. That's absolutely unheard of. If you imagine if you bet $100 a unit, and I've got bettors that bet $1,000 a unit. You bet $100 a unit. Look how much money you're up this year. That's $29,300. So if you follow the system, if you bet $10 per, you're up almost $3,000. A $10 unit better is up almost $3,000. So you get the first month for $84. Try it out. At no point of me doing this for the last 7 years have I ever had 3 months where you're not up at the end of that 3-month period. It's never happened. It never will happen. The results are absolutely phenomenal, and that's why I have the following that I have. I actually care about my subscribers, and, I'm averaging 40 to 50 units a month. If that's not worth 109, I'm not your guy. But losing months happen, but they're rare. August was a losing month. Never afraid to admit it. Nothing to hide. The bounce back I've had after the Edwards and Usman card has just been remarkable. And, it was a hump I had to get over. It was a couple bad beats, and then that head kick by Leon Rocky Edwards just put a stamp on that night. It was a bad night. But since that, it's been absolute fire. So head over to www.themmashark.com. Consider a subscription. You can ask me any questions you'd like. But I'm not just giving out one or two juicy plays. I'm capping 99% of the UFC fights. I'm giving props. I'm parlaying distance, no distance. I do long shot parlays. I give unit suggestions on every play. I give transparent results at the end of the night. And, stuff that sets me apart are the ones that I get right. We cashed 13 units on Mackenzie Dern losing last UFC card. And I had so much confidence in that play. Really, it should have been a bigger play. But you never know with judges in a female fight. And, at plus 260, that was a hell of a hit, even if I only had a unit on it. But we ended up risking 3 units straight. We had her in a plus 330 parlay for 3 units risk. So huge profit, and that's what we do. Huge profits. That's why the MMA Shark's what it is. It's getting bigger. Subscribers in 14 different countries right now, so head over there, check it out. Main card, fight 1, a really good bantamweight fight. I actually like Brandon Davis as a fighter. A lot of people have a lot of hate for Brandon Davis. He had his first stint in the UFC, and he got cut. And it's crazy that he got cut after losing he lost as a beat by knee bar, and then he lost a split decision to Kung Ho Kang, and then he lost a split decision to Giga Chikadze, who he's actually able to take down 3 times. So he went and picked up 4 wins on the regional scene, got back to the UFC, and got knocked out in the first round. Not a good look. He's 100% fighting for his job in this fight. He is a dangerous jiu-jitsu fighter, American top team fighter. I think that if he can get Manny Martinez to the ground, he could certainly pose a threat for him. Manny Martinez is a very good striker, Glory MMA and Fitness. He comes with some significant jabs. He's got a nasty looping left that he throws. This fight is very close as far as odds, and it's very close as far as how it's going to go. As far as odds, Manny Martinez is minus 155. And the comeback on Brandon Davis is plus 135, which in the world of MMA gambling, that's basically a pick'em. Anything under 150 is basically a pick'em. It's just where the money's fluctuating. So either could win this fight. I'm not releasing any free plays on it. I have a large play on it for my subscribers. It's all going to come down to, can Brandon Davis get the takedowns and secure them, or can Manny Martinez stuff the takedowns and strike with Brandon Davis? All in all, I think it's a fun fight. I think it's a good fight. But the next 3-4 fights after this one is where all hell breaks loose, and I think that the next 4 fights are the reason that I'm so excited for UFC Fight Night 62, and I think you should be too. Whether you're betting it or just watching it, the next 4 fights are going to be violent, they're going to be crazy, they're going to be fast-paced. We start off at the light heavyweight division, 205 pounds. We have Misha Cirkunov fighting Alonzo Menifield. Misha Cirkunov is 15-8 as a pro. He is coming off 3 losses in a row. One was a decision loss because he fought Krzysztof Jotko, who really isn't finishing anyone. That's actually the only fight in Misha Cirkunov's career that went the distance. A really bad look was his last fight when he got an armbar submission loss to Wellington Turman. He's supposed to be the ground guy. He's supposed to be the guy that can get the submissions and get the fight done. Ryan Spann brutally knocked him out. Johnny Walker brutally knocked him out. Glover Teixeira brutally knocked him out. Volkan Oezdemir brutally knocked him out. He doesn't have much of a chin. He does pose a legitimate threat. I'm going to say that even though Wellington Turman submitted him, he does pose a legitimate threat on the ground. He's out of Extreme Couture Toronto. He is 35 years old. Last fight was the last win he had was an awesome Peruvian necktie finish over Jimmy Crute, but that happened in 2018. So yes, he's been sliding. Yes, if he gets hit flush, boom, he's going to sleep. But at that same token, he's very dangerous on the feet. I think if he can weather an early onslaught from Alonzo Menifield, he has a chance in this fight. Alonzo Menifield, another Fortis MMA fighter, coming off a win over Askar Masharov. The Askar Masharov fight, to me, doesn't mean a whole lot. Askar Masharov, for those that don't remember, is the fighter that lied about his record and said he was 13-2 coming into the UFC. He was actually 17-12. Menifield embarrassed him in that fight, and he shouldn't have been in the UFC. He immediately got fined and cut from the UFC. So yes, it was a win, but it was nothing crazy. Previous to that, he fought a unanimous decision loss to William Knight, where neither really showed to engage, and it was just a total snoozer, which I'm hoping this fight isn't a total snoozer. I think Menifield's going to be hungry enough to try to get that early knockout, and I also think Cirkunov's going to be motivated enough to say, like, hey, I'm not done. Just because I've been knocked out by the best in the world doesn't mean that Alonzo Menifield's going to knock me out. So it could be a really boring fight, or it could be a really violent fight. I have my lean on that fight, but, you got to think to yourself, is it going to be Menifield by knockout or Cirkunov by submission? I've got my thoughts on it, but even if you go there, they're both plus 170. Menifield by knockout plus 170. Cirkunov by submission actually is plus 330. So if you take them both, I think you have a good shot at making some profit there. Not a strategy I use in my system, just something I'm just kind of tossing out there and something I could see happening. Next fight of the night, one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. Actually, next two fights, two of my top 5 favorite UFC fighters are in 2 of the next 5 fights. And which fighter am I talking about in the next fight that is in my top 5 of favorite fighters? That would be Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright is 12-3. He's coming off 2 losses in a row. A mounted guillotine choke loss to Marc-Andre Barriault and a brutal knockout to Bruno Silva. Prior to that, he knocked out Jamie Pickett. He got knocked out by Joaquin Buckley. He knocked out Ike Villanueva, who has really resurged since that. Every fight he has had, he has either been knocked out or submitted the opponent or knocked out the opponent. He has a 100% finish rate. He has never seen the judges. He is a kill or be killed fighter. He is absolutely amazing to watch. You can't blink during a Jordan Wright fight. He is the underdog in this fight at plus 175, taking on Dusko Todorovic. Dusko is very good. He's a very tough fighter, and I think he's going to want to try to get this one to the ground. If he could get it to the ground, it's going to spell a very long night for Jordan Wright, and by long, I mean like a round and a half long of getting pummeled on the ground. But I feel like Jordan Wright's going to really come out there and throw his hands and try to get the win. Dusko was knocked out in his last fight by Chidi and Njokuani. Prior to that, he knocked out Maki Pitolo. Pitolo has been cut from the UFC, but he's piling up knockout after knockout on the regional scene. I can see him coming back. Dusko has also lost a unanimous decision to Gregory Rodriguez, and he was knocked out brutally by Pumile Soriano. So neither fighter really showed that they have much of a chin. This fight's not going the distance. Second free play of the night is Dusko versus Jordan Wright, not going the distance. It's a little juicy. Maybe a parlay that with Victor Henry. Let's make that my second official free play. No distance in Dusko versus Jordan Wright, parlayed with Victor Henry, would be my second free play. And my first free play was Jacob Malkoun as an underdog at plus 110. But I think that's going to be an absolutely amazing fight. Like I said, two of my favorite top 5 fighters were in the next fights. And the next fight, the feature fight of the evening, has my number 3 favorite fighter in it. And I don't bet with my heart, but Brandon Royval. I absolutely love Brandon Royval. He is gritty. He can win by submission, which he does all the time. back in May. We had a huge win on him when he fought Matt Schnell. We had him to win by submission. We had him to win inside distance. We had under 2.5. And, of course, we had him straight. And he did submit Matt Schnell early in the first round. But if you remember the fight, he was dropped early by Matt Schnell, who is not much of a striker. Prior to that, he won a split decision fight over Rodrigo Bontarin. Before that, Alexander Pantoja knocked him out. Alexander Pantoja actually submitted him, but he was injured in the scramble that happened before that. And he fought Brandon Moreno, where he had a shoulder injury prior to that. And he submitted Kai Kara France. So Brandon Royval is as real as it gets. He doesn't care if he gets hurt. He goes full tilt boogie in his fights. He is plus 205 in this fight versus Askar Askarov. And Askar Askarov is a very, very big up-and-comer. He's fast. He's a Kazakhstan fighter. He is coming off a unanimous decision loss to Kai Kara France, so these guys match up perfectly. I think a title challenger will emerge from this fight. He did beat Alexander Pantoja. He beat Joseph Benavidez. He beat Tim Elliott, and he fought Brandon Moreno to a draw. So this is a fight that is really exciting. Right now, Askar Askarov is minus 245. Brandon Royval is plus 205. A couple props that stick out is Askar Askarov to win by decision at plus 200. Askar Askarov to win inside distance at plus 240. And Brandon Royval to win by decision is plus 600. Definitely catches my eye, but this is going to be a subscriber-only fight, as it is an absolutely huge fight. But I do love Brandon Royval as a fighter, and Askar Askarov is just so talented. He's tough, he's gritty, he's ready wherever this fight goes. If Brandon Royval does not have very good takedown defense. He's just so gritty off his back. He's able to throw up submissions, quickly get his opponents to tap. I don't see him much as a knockout threat in this fight, as Askar Askarov has very good defensive wrestling, very good striking defense. I think it's just going to be a barn burner of a fight. It's not going to be a snoozer. It's going to be a fun fight. Again, flyweights are really making a comeback in the UFC. I think it's going to be an excellent fight. We go on to the co-main event of the evening. We have Jonathan Martinez, very, very tough fighter out of Texas. He trains at Different Breed MMA. He has compiled a pretty solid win streak. The last two were decision wins over Alexander Perez and Vince Morales. Neither of them were Cub Swanson, though. Cub Swanson's an original OG of this sport and of this division. He is starting to age. He's 38 years old. He's going to have a slight reach advantage in this. Very impressive last fight. He hasn't fought all year, but last year, December, he did knock out Darren Elkins by wheel kick in the first round. Anyone that watches as much MMA as I do knows that Darren Elkins is very, very hard to finish. And Cub Swanson was able to do that. Swanson's got a lot of knockout wins on his record. He knocked out Daniel Pineda. I remember that was a great fight. He had a very bad streak, which occurred in 2017 through 2019. He lost to Shane Burgos. He lost to Renato Moicano. He lost to Frankie Edgar. He lost to Brian Ortega. And then he came back and defeated Kron Gracie and Daniel Pineda. He did lose to Giga Chikadze in a match that he was absolutely outworked and outclassed when he fought Giga Chikadze. I don't even think that should have been sanctioned, that fight at the time. But, him taking on Jonathan Martinez is a little bit more of an even fight. But at the same token, Jonathan Martinez is definitely the new blood in the UFC bantamweight division. He has no really significant wins. This would be the biggest win of his life. And he's minus 205. I think that's a little heavy. I think it's way too much of a price to pay. Cub Swanson is definitely a live dog at plus 175. Not saying that's my pick. Not saying any official picks on that. I think it'll be a good fight. Will one be reluctant to throw compared to the other? Both are very good strikers. Both are very talented. Both can grapple. Both can wrestle. So even closer fight than the odds. I see this kind of trappy. You might be one of those people that want to throw 5 units at Jonathan Martinez to win 2.4 units, and I just don't see this being the spot to do that. But You do you. And again, I'm not saying that Martinez is going to win or not win. I'm saying that it's a fight I'm keeping an eye on, and I think Cub Swanson is not getting a whole lot of respect from the odds makers at plus 175, considering who he's been in there with and who he's finished. Main event of the evening. I think this is a sleeper main event that's actually going to be a lot better than is being billed. Alexa Grasso has been extremely impressive. And not only that, Mexico MMA has been extremely impressive. They say the Mexican heritage, they're fighters, the Mexican blood, they're fighters. She's fighting at a Lobo Gym MMA. It's been an awesome gym. Last fight, she choked out Joanne Wood, which is really a significant win. Prior to that, she defeated our girl Macy Barber and Jeon Kim, so she is coming off winning out of 4 out of 5. She defeated Carolina Carol Jacek and did have a decision loss to Carla Esparza. The fact that she wasn't submitted or ever in any threat of getting submitted by Carla Esparza is pretty significant. She's a very prolific striker. She's got great cardio. And that brings me to Viviane Araujo. Viviane is really tough. She's Brazilian. Cirkunov MMA. She's coming off a win over Andrea Lee. And prior to that, she did lose a decision to Katlyn Chookagian. Katlyn Chookagian is somewhat similar to Alexa Grasso, but Chookagian's much longer than Alexa Grasso. So Araujo had some problems dealing with the distance in the Chookagian fight. She didn't necessarily get hurt, but she was getting clipped. Prior to that, she did beat Montana De La Rosa and Roxanne Modafferi, 2 significant wins. Prior to that, she lost to Jessica Ai. I think this is a good main event. It's going to come down to Araujo's takedowns and Grasso's shots, stuffing takedowns and punches. I think Grasso is definitely a 5-round fighter. I'm not sure if Araujo is a 5-round fighter. She hasn't been tested there yet. She's a tough fighter. It's a pretty close line right now at Alexa Grasso being minus 225. The comeback on Viviane Araujo plus 190. The fight to go the distance is minus 200. Vegas really seems to think it will go the distance. I question Araujo's cardio if this fight can go the distance. If she doesn't get an early finish, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But overall, it's a good card. You know, my predictions for fight of the night is going to be Askarov versus Brandon Royval, Dusko Todorovic versus Jordan Wright, and Manny Martinez versus Brandon Davis. A lot of people think that's going to be a snoozer. I think that's going to be a super good fight. And, of course, we've got Nick Maximov versus Jacob Malkoun. All in all, really good card, and it's a free card. I gave out 2 free plays. One is a parlay with Victor Henry and no distance in the Dusko versus Jordan Wright fight. Again, that's no distance in the Wright versus Dusko fight. And parlay that with Victor Henry. And the second free play I gave is just a straight play on the underdog Jacob Malkoun, which I think will pose too strong of a threat for Nick Maximov. As much as Nick Diaz has him ready for this fight, Nate Diaz has him ready for this fight, I just think Malkoun's much bigger for the division. I think he's going to be stronger. I might be wrong. Maybe I get it wrong. Maybe I get both free plays wrong and still win 14 units on the night. Check it out, www.themmashark.com. One thing I can guarantee, if you sign up with me, you're going to be with a handicapper that cares about you and your results. You're going to be with a handicapper that's transparent, one that's willing to reach back to you, discuss live during the card with you. If you need any advice, I'm there. You're dealing with just me. It's not some firm or anything. You know, I'm Paul. I'm the MMA Shark. I'd love to earn your business. Check it out, www.themmashark.com. I'm not going to get nuts with this card. There's a couple fights that aren't extremely bettable, and we're not going to chase profits because next weekend, after this weekend, is UFC 280, UFC Abu Dhabi. Man, every fight on that card, it's so hard not to look ahead, but the task at hand is making money on this card, staying at my recent run of 91% profitable cards. And then once that's over, I'll be on here with a recap of every play. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on here. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you agree with. Let me know what you don't agree with. But like the YouTube channel, subscribe to it. Go to the website, www.themmashark.com. look around the website. There's some UFC fighters that I'm very close with that have seen my system. They'll tell you what they see. You can click on the results tab and see how each card I've done this year has performed. And you can look at the upcoming events. And it's a rolling subscription, so you're good for 30 days. There's no good or bad day to sign up during the month. It's not like you sign up on the 10th, you're only paid through the 30th. It's a full rolling 30 days. And again, everything's texty. You don't need to log in. The results are for real. Sign up. I'll make you a believer. TheMMAShark.com. For now, I'm Paul. I'm checking out, and hopefully you guys have a profitable UFC 262. Thanks for listening.